So this is a video about Ubisoft that is finally have taken their final shot. This should be interesting.
It's all come down to this. Nearly 20,000 jobs and the fate of an entire company rest on Assassin's Creed Shadows. The stakes have quite literally never been higher, and this is something that could change the face of the games industry forever. And you may hear that and think, wow, that is insane hyperbole. It's actually not. I'm not joking. You see, Ubisoft's CEO and his family are locked in a battle for control of the company. A group of investors want them out, but the CEO, Yves Guillemot, could cut a deal with the
If they cut a good deal, then they could absolutely, like, you know, save himself. Like, you know, like Assassin's Creed Shadows can be absolutely a washed game already, but it's like, you know, a group of investors are high mantling just... It's pretty crazy to think about this, you know? Like...
Yet, and Ubisoft very literally might still split in two.
The one thing it's fair to say about the Assassins is they kind of nailed their ADC, and the brand...
I mean, not gonna lie, but Assassin's Creed Shadows has absolutely enabled themselves, you know, to be a good game, but all of a sudden people are also saying at the same time, though, it's just that, you know, it's not the same feedback you can get on, like, you know, Reddit, Twitter. It's like... absolutely just dawns on me just to think, you know, like, absolutely Ubisoft is one of those companies that have absolutely abstractively been making the worst games ever. Like, X-Defiant, like, totally, that game is already shut down. And, Skulls and Bones, like, you gotta think, like, this is how much money, like, Ubisoft has tried putting into these games, and all of a sudden they lose that much $1 million.
That I love and use every day, Ridge. Video.
Rich, ooh.
It's their once-a-year anniversary sale.
So it's like a sponsor of like a different kind of like.
Get off it and click my link below. Now, here's my favorite, and it's the leather key case. I could not resist.
It's how many keys you can have to get into, you know, as much like doors as you can, and as much as like chests as you can. Yep.
It's durable. It holds up to 6 keys, and it keeps them under the perfect amount of tension, which means no key jangle. I hate key jangle. And also, right?
Oh, that's actually pretty badass. So you can make those keys like... Wow. Every time you come up to a door, you select the right key, like your house key, for example. Yep.
It's just nice every day.
It is. Oh, joy. Skip the sponsor. Might as well. I mean, yeah, I mean, I kind of just want to get into these chances that, you know, Ubisoft is absolutely just, like, taking chances all the time. Like, you know... They're not a very good company, for example. Like, it's just, like, rethinking this again. It's like their perspective is just going to be so...
Over the last few months, right, they are back on Steam. They removed advanced access as a pre-order bonus, which, by the way, is pretty amazing, because fuck that.
I mean, fuck that. I mean, Assassin's Creed Shadows is a dream project to come true, but, like, go look at it.
Also knows that any drama will go viral, so they actually responded to the Japanese politicians who conflated Shadows with real-life vandalism.
That's why. That's why. They don't want, like, I mean, that's why Japanese, like, you know, like the government in Japan, for example, like, they went all into this game. It's like, you know, how many rumors do you think is all over, like, Twitter and all that? It's like, you know, everybody's generically gonna see that, too. It's like, I mean, it says here, like, citizens without weapons no longer bleed when attacked, but reducing themselves to, you know, have temples and shrines in a game. It's like, you know, it's like, for example, it's like they're having, like, different kinds of generic, like, items everywhere, right? So, like, players can use and move and push, like, in the game, right? Yeah. I mean, like, for example, like, you get, like, those, like, you know, heals in, like, Diablo, for example, like, yeah. But that's the same kind of physic. I mean, it can be.
And you can see how for Ruby this is no chances being taken. I mean, hell, review copies even went out 3 times earlier than without.
How many copies do you think this game's still selling to this day? I mean, you can't say.
Crazy. And even in marketing terms, they went pretty hard. Like, there's even a whole commercial spoof from Ubisoft Brazil.
Yeah,
so
we fucking seen this.
And internally, some insiders leaking out to the press have said that staff pushed very hard for all of this. Here's a quote. The teams have worked like never before to finish it. They really needed the extra month. There are senior employees who worked every day to complete it. It was pretty crazy. And And those same
It's pretty crazy they work on the inside of the game too, right? Like they're working so hard just to push them out there to like the way they could succeed, they could just, I mean, Assassin's Creed Odyssey paid off a lot of money when people first bought that game. It's like, you know, like it's like buying a whole new Call of Duty game, for example. Like,
so by Sunday, Ubisoft were reporting that Shadows had 2 million players, and according to data,
yeah, 2 million players. That's like.
Ubisoft data that's been seen by Inside Shadows is now the second biggest launch that the franchise has ever had. Now, you may know Insider Gaming from their absolute torrent.
2 million players just in 2 days have after a launch game. I mean, honestly, I could be honest, though. Assassin's Creed Valhalla absolutely did achieve 2.50 million, like, players worldwide, basically. But roughly 430,000 people, early access. But I'm not big into early access. I wait till the game fully comes out. That's just how we all streamers are, right? Like, I mean, I'm personally somebody that wants to wait till this game is fully not, like, fully, you know, or a different mode I can just go into, and it's like, you know, I just wait till the game's fully on, like, a launch day.
Accurate and sometimes very uncomfortable for Ubisoft.
I mean, it could be extremely just.
So honestly, I would take what they say they've seen.
X-Defiant borrowed a lot of time for sure. Off like.
We also see a bit of a trend, and it's a sort of neat one. So number one, this was Ubisoft's largest PlayStation launch, which is hardly a surprise.
You mean day one launch on PlayStation Store?
Total activations.
Totally.
And according to them, the return to Steam on day
yeah,
one
Steam actually. If Steam quoted something about that, that can enforce a whole lot of people to get the game more excessively on Steam than PlayStation. I mean, I actually just played this game on PlayStation just because I like, you know, stealth games on a controller more than keyboard and mouse, but I thought that it's just a 50% coupon in a game, too, like a 50% off, like, that's just the whole high rate, you know? Like, yeah.
We already knew. If you forego Gabe, you do so at your absolute peril. And unsurprisingly, Shadows had the highest launch concurrence of any Assassin's Creed in Steam.
See, look at that, 39,384 are playing right now. 8,400 Odyssey, 3,702 Origins. Yeah. That's insane, like, especially these two games came out, like, 5 years ago. Like, you know.
Well, it's a simultaneous launch.
In short, this has been a good day for Ubisoft, but it was not actually the top Assassin's Creed launch. That still is Valhalla.
Like Valhalla, for example, yep. That's going to launch a whole lot, 3.4 million. Back in 2020, that's just nobody else had nothing to do besides play games like God of War. You know, I can't say that. I mean, Stadia had some pretty good, like, quality games, I will say. But they're going to be so insane to see, like, how much value that these games are going to overcost, right? Like, you could just see, like, yeah, like 82% accurate for critics.
Because the recommendation is a simple yes/no, meaning it is just like a Steam review. Steam reviews are 81%.
Ooh.
That's a hell of a lot of alignment, and there's not even a large discrepancy in the regional reviews. So
that's bad.
Far more harsh. Chinese user scores are trending to 75%. There are Japanese reviews, but it's a really tiny sample size.
Except for Turkey, Spain, yep. And Thai.
But still, those are at 73. That is a touch more negative than the other ones, but it still is fairly positive. And I would say overall, kind of helps it performance-wise. This game was mostly free of bugs and crashes, even in PC, which is probably the most shocking part of this story. Anyway, the big question is it enough to satisfy the Ubisoft investors? We obviously don't have financials yet, but this is a game that's trending in Valhalla's direction. Valhalla is a game that passed $1 billion in revenue after...
I was gonna say, like, this game absolutely was so big when it was on sale, too. It's like a complete pack of, like, utilities, yeah. Like...
is that in 2026, whenever Shadows is 75% off and there's some DLC to get people hyped for, well, there will be a pile of microtransaction revenue for Ubisoft to reap. That will make investors a bit happier. Okay, that's numbers, but I think what we care about the most is
the game of two halves. Yes, that's absolutely itself.
Translated Japanese because it really tickled me. The quote is, "The amount of content and heat in this open world Sengoku game is overwhelming." Overwhelming is a fair word for modern Assassin's Creed games and me.
I mean, modern Assassin's Creed games are very overwhelming, especially like Black Flag or like the third one. Like, no, it felt like a whole RPG style, like, multiplayer, could I say, right? Like, I feel like those games to this day are like $20, but still, it's like, you know, the graphics still feel the same from back then, and it's like, now, compare that to, like, AC Shadows, like, now, like, Assassin's Creed Shadows absolutely is just a whole, like, montage.
Review, but it does strike to a core point here that these games can be a bit strange.
Like, the objective menu is just so hard to figure out quests. Like, these quests are so long. Like, they take forever for sure. Like, that's why I literally quit the game.
The critical consensus on Shadows is this.
On Shadows, I mean, if you say, like, you like RPG-style games, then that's...
Most polished combat, better loot, better skills, and a fantastically well-realized open world. But it's also trying to woo in people who are like me, who like the older Assassin's Creed games.
Yep.
And that means there's a complete overhaul to stealth. That basically means there's light-based...
It's like a Splinter Cell kind of stealth, you know? It's like... I mean, I thought the grappling hook was badass in this game, right? Like, come on. Like, Nai was such a good, like, character in the game, right? But it's just, the only thing I just didn't like about the game is the complexity of the quests. Like, I felt like these quests got so boring in the middle of the story. Like, but the beginning of the game was so much better, you know?
Stuff, which brings me to the split, because it's done in a way that most games do not even try to attempt, because it honestly seems like an awful idea.
It's very awful the way they just, you know, the combat's so good, but it's just, you know, it's repetitive.
What's weird here is,
like, it's repetitively just the same quests.
Change of Assassin's Creed actually is. It was less about assassinating and more about just kicking the shit out of people with kind of RPG-inspired action game stuff. And in a sense, it does seem like an awful idea. I mean, if Naue can do...
Yeah, Odyssey was a whole lot like an Elden Ring, like, kind of... Well, I can't say enough, like, this game was a whole lot more... like, why play as Yasuke the Black Samurai? Come on. I mean, he's pretty good, we'll say that, but, like, you know... It's in an open world game, you know, when you're in the same world with an enemy, it's like...
Of course, the reality is that Ubisoft has literal trillions of developers. Not an order of magnitude more than, say, Sucker Punch, but a hell of a lot more.
I mean, like Rockstar Game Studios, for example.
They tried to make a game for everyone, absurdly so, which means this is not like a Hidetaka Miyazaki, you know, Michelin-star tasting menu. Oh no, this is the Chipotle game, right? You just take the bits that you want.
I mean, I can't say enough, right? Like, the Chipotle, like, kind of gameplay. Yeah, that's kind of exactly what this reminds me of, though. Like, I mean, it lets you assassinate different people, too, right? Yeah, like... I mean, if you don't like RPGs that are pesky like that, yeah. I mean, you can absolutely, like, just... It definitely is, yeah.
And that is this. So, if you hate the assault of Ubisoft map markers, I certainly do, that's actually turned off by default, and now guided exploration is an opt-in, which I do see as a good thing. And there's one mode I really won't roll my eyes at, and that's immersive mode, because it basically puts the whole game in Japanese and Portuguese. Now, if you didn't know, by the way, the Portuguese were up to their usual papist shenanigans at the time in the 1600s in Japan. So honestly, fair play for putting the absurd amount of money into actually making that.
Whoa.
So this means that for me, I can play this as Naue with immersive mode on, lots of stealth, you know, more, I guess, more like binary pass-fail difficulty. While, of course, Mr. Chad Thundercock, who's only played Valhalla and Odyssey, he can play as Yasuke with cannon mode. And
yeah, I thought the bow and arrow with Yasuke was a little bit too, like, you know... I mean, it's kind of weird to think, you know, it's like...
Ubisoft basically invoked that by default, but they tried to get around the problem.
I mean, they try to get around problems like, you know... Like, if, for example, you're building in a hideout, right? Like, it's like... Other people think that they just, you know...
way, playing both Yasuke and Naue, well, to them it's a game with a complete identity crisis. That's what's
like customizing was so annoying.
This is a platform for future shareholder returns.
Ooh.
And I'm not even joking. I mean that quite literally. So let me fill you in on the plan. Okay, so per the executive producer, Shadows is the start of Period 3 of Assassin's Creed. And the plan is to make more games and to make more stuff basically for older games. And that even means expansions for Odyssey and Valhalla, which is not the sort of thing you usually see.
I mean, if you don't see, like, a platform, it's like, you know...
Ubisoft was alleged to have 11 Assassin's Creed games planned.
If they have that, I mean, this is like a Call of Duty, like Black Ops, Warzone, and, you know, like Modern Warfare. Like, it's the same kind of timeline as this, you're thinking? I mean, I feel like it's the same exact kind of, you know, concept, but it's like... I mean, you think about how these games came out years ago, right? And you just anonymously say to yourself, like, you know... Couldn't have been, like, especially Shadows, like a remake off of another platform.
The plan is to make it so that Assassin's Creed basically caters to every taste, because they will just quite literally have all of the games and all of the content, because they have trillions of devs. So they say smaller teams will...
They say closed beta 2s are absolutely just collaborating nowadays, too. So big AAA games can release, but it's just... Yeah, like Hex and Invictus. I've never really played those.
Those are framed as getting more dev time and existing alongside games like Shadows. So it's basically sort of less of, oh, the new game comes in and completely replaces the old game, which is now dead.
Yep.
So the backbone of this is a dev...
That's kind of like how, you know, other games do it.
Shadows. This is where we can go to Insider Gaming, who of course have got plenty of sources. In March of last year, they said that the Anvil...
Like all these skins in this timeline of Assassin's Creed, you guys can know it's just... That's the whole franchise, yeah. Like the new engine and all that to the gaming and industries, it's like...
Of course, look, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you will know that that shit matters.
It does. It's like BioWare wants to try to, you know...
There not being a good unified code base for the Total War games that's just led to sheer chaos. So I guess that's probably a good thing for Assassin's Creed. So
I mean, it can be good for Assassin's Creed because that's one of the most million, like, dollar paid games by Ubisoft, right? Like, I think it could be more, you know, just at least to know, like, at least, like, a certain kind of game, like, you know, that comes out with Ubisoft games, like, it's just, yeah.
Anyway, investing in their future is down to developers and the...
I mean, investing in an investor would be so good.
Assassin's Creed machine. I suppose in a similar way to how Bobby Kotick really did want the ultimate Call of Duty machine. At one point, the AC executive producer...
I mean, I could say different executors are just...
Shadows were building a game for the first time, which, you know, in some ways is a little spooky, but, I mean, if you look at the critical reviews...
If you look at reviews, they will show you all kinds of, you know, all kinds of game critics' opinions, too. Yeah.
Of Assassin's Creed. This is a company going all in on the one big franchise that they know absolutely really does work in a way that is more successful than, say, The Division, which might get loads and loads of sales and actually have a decent long tail, but has had a rumbly time. So the idea that they've got all...
So, like, the idea they could just put all these deals into them, and it's just, you know...
And that means that new tools, new devs, new games, and a plan for that franchise to basically cover everything in terms of gameplay and fantasy. You can see, right, the top-level strategy there, and you can certainly see how that would appeal to investors. And I think if you or I were to strip away, I guess, our personal gamer bias, right? If we were to strip that completely away and look at things in a very market perspective, if you were an investor, shareholder type, and you see everything being that and the one franchise that is the most proven of Ubisoft's lot, yeah, that does kind of make sense. But the big question will be the Guillemets. Their position will...
I mean, the position of the lack of, like, you know... Uncertainly, it can just be, like, you know... Even if this game continues to, like, go well, then... So, yeah, this video just got me...
will not disappear entirely, regardless of investor pressure or how any of that stuff does. Assassin's Creed Shadows was basically never going to fail. I mean fail in...
It wouldn't fail. It's been a long-time franchise, right?
A lot of drama following that in the internet. At the end of the day, there's a hell of a lot of people that sometimes just buy their yearly sports game, their purely Assassin's Creed game and
like EA Sports or something. Nah. I think internet stuff could tell you all kinds of stuff about, you know.
To change what that crowd very obviously does. If it was enough to change
Yes.
that, maybe we wouldn't have Call of Duty games that have turned into such a nightmare hellscape as the ones that we've got today. Now, as for the core conflict of this story, yes, Ubisoft very well may split.
I mean, it may well just... It's going to lose a lot of its sales. You're going to know that it's going to have, like...
that basically Team Ubisoft's plan here is potentially to make a second company, which would be an IP holding company. That company would own Assassin's Creed, and it would then...
Isn't that what Blizzard did, too, where they had to make their own company like that, too, and then they... I mean, I gotta say, one of their investors, like, gave up, like, a lot of, like, you know, when Overwatch 2 first came out, their trailer, it's like, you know, one of their investors, I believe, left to just make Marvel Rivals, you know? Just because that game was starting to become, like, the, you know, #1 hero shooter of championships, you know, if you watch, like, Sentinels and all that, it's like 100 Thieves, that's how that game became, like, you know...
It's an Ubisoft entity, which is the one that's...
Which, I think, like, it's not going to be that bad, but it's...
As we've just explained, the plans for Assassin's Creed as a franchise do all hinge on the scale of Ubisoft. All of those support teams who now get to lead their own projects, now that they've got like a unified dev pipeline and all that jazz. All these fresh devs who I suppose have now actually just learned the Anvil pipeline.
To start the Assassin's Creed franchise as the whole isn't moving to a new engine necessarily, but they will be using a substantial evidence. Like, I think they use some kind of like explanation about, you know... Like, if various Assassin's Creed studios, which there are many of, like, you know, unified branch too, it's like, rather than having different kinds of people to just say there's different versions of this game, and then they release early access, because this is what they did with Shadows, like, they made it, like, $100, they, like, raised up, like, a whole entire, you know, this much of a loot and all that, and I thought that was just so, like, just... Trust me, we all, like, just didn't like that. Like, the way that Ubisoft was just portraying the game like that, and then all of a sudden, it's like, you know...
That's a plan that will look good to long-term investors. Now,
I mean, I think the whole entire thing about the franchise, they lay off a lot.
Or to get quick cost-saving measures done under a new owner, it would not be able to keep that sheer amount of scale. Basically, the sort of thing that AJ Investments do as an activist investor is
they take advantage of events, and then they take such step that's going to help correct and optimize the running of companies. I think they can invest their clients a little bit better if they can just, you know, have AJ Investments, because last time, like, they were all roaching out. AJ Investments were secretly just, you know... They kept losing, you know, they had risky investments for sure, yes, but, like, you know, they lost so many, like, situations in themselves. Like, these investments are just not, you know, cooperating with the company, and then all of a sudden you find out, like, they already just just lose that opportunity to just stay in, and you have all these other assholes that are proactively just not doing nothing about, you know, different investments, so that's pretty much about... You know, that's the way Ubisoft is just running around right now. That's like all these companies are. Which, see,
then they sell their stock, they exit the position, and they're done. It's one of the ways where private equity
they get open letters to just have equity to just rise the game up.
Long term, whilst in the short term, making people a shitload of money. However, in this case, it does appear to make the Guillemot's position actually stronger. And what that's going to mean is that even if they pursue a deal, as you know, they have been said to be looking into, per again the AJ Investments letter, which is talking about a lawsuit being planned and a protest in Paris.
They were just trying so hard to mislead every single investor, like discussions between Microsoft, EA, and others that are interested in acquiring IPs from Ubisoft, only because they're trying to require people to just, you know... Like Krupa, for example, yeah, like, especially, like, they're just trying to invest themselves, like, hey, like, you know, are we making, like, better, acquiring IPs? Like, are we making shareholders point themselves to a, you know, article, like, I mean, are they trying so hard to keep themselves local or something like that? Like, are they trying to keep the company to run better games or something? I mean, I guess that sounds about right.
Why they will have more leverage is because, to them, per the numbers, looks like they're onto a fairly good plan. So if you're AJ Investments and you were there to do a quick buck, you're now in a little bit of a tricky position. The next development,
A little bit trickier than you think.
Protest, right?
Yeah.
They do launch a lawsuit against Ubisoft.
They should. They should. They should.
Today. If you want, though, a amazing story, it involves
Absolutely, very good video for sure.
Hundreds of jobs being lost, and a CEO literally saying,
I mean, that's why a lot of people, like CEOs, are saying their employees don't trust them.
And then all going tits
Yep.
up. We should watch this video next.
That was absolutely a great video, though. But you gotta know, like, Ubisoft has their final, like, shot in gaming, right? Because, you know, it says here, 2 million players. That number would be so impressive if Ubisoft Plus didn't exist. How many people sign up for a month for an access to a deluxe edition and didn't actually buy it? That makes it far less impressive. It really, yeah, like, you have a new game that comes out, you're farly just not gonna, you know, you play the early access of it for like 1 month, right? And then all of a sudden the deluxe edition comes out. That's the question. Do you actually buy it? I always do. Especially when I'm like on stream and all that and I see a game that's releasing. I can't wait to play, you know? Like the first Berserker Kazan came out yesterday. I got the game and it was so badass. Sigh of release of Sigh Relief. Are you these players in the room with us right now? No way. These CEOs aren't even going to be nowhere impressive with 10 million people. Just, you know, like I said, this for like a minute, all of us like are just saying how much Ubisoft is just absolutely going to lose themselves doing some dumb shit with their video games. Absolutely. Like, 2 million players, you got to think. Like, just don't be misunderstanding that, okay? Just 2 hours, it's just... Oh, yeah, it's time for bloat deflation. I feel what that means right there. But, that's going to end the video, yes. Anyways, I hope you guys like this video, though. I really personally think Ubisoft is just at that, like, you know, target where they're just completely done. Like, but yeah, that's all for today. Peace and out. Peace. See ya.